In one way or another, every good manager is a coach. As a coach, you want to make your staff members as effective and productive as possible. One of the most useful tools for developing staff is through the use of coaching through questioning. In this episode, we'll explain this management approach and discuss how to make you a more effective manager and your staff more productive. We'll show how to use questions to help clarify expectations, identify gaps and opportunities, and explore different practices and ideas. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
Coaching is about helping staff to unlock their ideas, perspectives, and talents in order to be more productive and increase their skill sets. Coaching through questioning is a way for you to help staff members to develop those skills. You can ask open-ended questions that encourage staff to think about issues and provide their own insight and answers to questions the department is facing.
Yeah, this leads to two-way discussion that can help you develop alternative ways to resolving a problem. This type of questioning can actually lead to new and better solutions. Not only does this help the staff member develop new skills, but if done correctly, it can also help you build strong relationships with your team by improving trust, candor, and openness.
That's so true, Rick. That's really an important part of the whole process, is that it helps you in more than one way.
Right.
Let's be honest, coaching through questioning generally takes more time than if the manager decides on the solution to a problem and simply tells staff what to do. And some managers don't have the interest in investing the time it takes. They want to come up with an answer to a problem that'll enable quick progress. And let's be clear, there are times in an emergency when a decision must be made quickly to protect the business.
But we're talking about involving staff when there's not an emergency. I mean, in this case, some managers still want to make a decision and move on without involving staff. And they prefer to simply state the problem or issue and mandate the solution. This lets everyone know the decision has been made, but this approach also leads to staff members who passively wait for the manager to define the issues, set the direction, and tell them what, where, and how the work will be carried out. This may speed the process, but the manager loses the opportunity for possibly critical input from the staff members, and perhaps most importantly, the opportunity for staff development and increased satisfaction.
I agree. And to be clear, we strongly believe in the coaching process, except in those situations where there is an emergency, because as we said, the coaching process is both problem solving and building a stronger relationship with your team. Let's see how it might work. The process of coaching through questioning begins with active listening. Of course, ideally, this involves first reducing as much as possible any outside distractions or interruptions. The conversation can be initiated by either you or the staff person. In either case, you should open the conversation with an open-ended question such as, what do you think about X? Or what do you think we should do about Y? If the discussion is about an issue or problem new to the staff person, the manager can begin by outlining the issue enough that the staff member can respond to questions about it.
And it's important, Fred, for the manager to give the staff member time to think about it and respond. And sometimes this takes longer than you'd think. I mean, depending on the employee's response, you should follow up with more questions. Why do you think that? Or can you tell me more about that approach? And so forth. If you feel that there is an alternative approach, you can ask, well, what about Y? Or have you thought about Z? The purpose of this back and forth on what was said, especially on more important or challenging issues, is to get the employee to think about the issue at hand, as well as their responses to your questions, and to evaluate their answers on a non-confrontational manner.
It's crucial that the exchange is not seen as being in any way confrontational. It's important that you as the manager not behave in any way that might make the team member feel they are being challenged, but rather for them to feel that you are sincerely seeking their ideas and observations in a completely non-judgmental way. The goal here is to elicit the best thinking from the staff person and to try to stimulate them to think about the problem creatively. This won't happen if the individual feels they're being challenged or judged in any way. I had a coaching case just the other day where we were talking about a particularly sticky issue. And once we got into the questioning that Rick was just talking about, the back and forth questioning, we spent an hour to an hour and 15 minutes on that one sticky issue, so that the staff member could think through all of the various possibilities and come up with the best solution.
Well, that's a good example. And this process is not always easy, especially when the staff person gives answers that you don't necessarily agree with. And in these cases especially, it's important that you never disagree with the staff person, but rather continue to ask neutral questions, like, why do you feel that way? Or what do you think about this approach? Stating your own preferred option. And in many cases, this type of open discussion can lead to an even better solution to the issue, as well as a stronger relationship between you and the team member. So, through questioning in an attempt to clarify and understand and not challenge what the employee is saying, you are letting the person know that you're actively listening to what's being said. And it's these actions that show trust and openness.
Another aspect of coaching through questioning is to get the staff person's thinking about all relevant aspects of the issue with questions. And this is what I was talking about before in the example that I gave you of a recent coaching case. So you're trying to ask a series of questions to get the person looking at the problem or issue from all sides. So some of the questions that you might ask are, what do you feel we are trying to accomplish? What do you see as the overall goal or goals? If it's something that they're working on, what colleagues would you like to have working with you? How would you determine which approach to follow? And you might very well talk to the person about various approaches that could be followed. Then what problems do you foresee with this approach? You always want to look down the road and say what could go wrong, and how would you go about resolving them, and what do you need or hope to learn?
Yeah, I mean, those are really important questions. And I think, Fred, it's also important to keep in mind when you're doing this questioning that it's not a level playing field, that you're the boss, and you've got to go out of your way to, again, be sensitive to the fact that the staff member is going to defer to you if the opportunity arises, and you want to be on guard about that. But by actively listening to each answer, you must evaluate if you understand all aspects of the answer. I mean, even if you think you do, if the answer is critical to the solution to the issue, it's a good idea to play back the answer in a slightly different form to verify that you really do correctly understand what your staff person said. I mean, you can say, am I correct that what you're saying is, and then say how, repeat how you understand what the staff person has said. It's also important to ask if there are any other possible approaches and to ask about what else might be tried and why or why not.
Once again, we mentioned at the very beginning that that the process requires more time. You've got to make sure you're in a quiet place. You're making sure that you can listen to each other, and you're making sure that you give the person the time to actually work on this so that you get a two-way conversation about possible solutions to the problem and to help the team members' problem-solving approach through the process. This is really the essence of coaching. And to be effective in coaching through questioning, it's critical that the manager is respectful, stays calm and professional. If the other person doesn't understand something, you help them out, typically by asking questions of them until they do understand.
This is so important, and we say this over and over again about practicing active listening. And by active listening, it means that you're processing what the person is saying and being sure that you fully understand exactly what is being said by asking clarifying questions. As we said, do you mean this or do you mean that? But in a non-confrontational way. And the other thing to keep in mind, and this happened to me a lot, was not so much that I did it, at least I hope I didn't do it, but I did have a boss one time who, if you questioned anything he said, he got defensive. And that was from somebody who was beneath him, a staff person to that person. So you've got to be very careful and make sure that they're not seeing you as again, confronting them with a question or, disagreeing with them. And the other important tool is using silence. That is, I had a psychiatrist friend once say, nature abhors a vacuum, and if you want your staff person to say something, just be quiet. And sooner or later, they'll say something. So a pause can give either of you a chance to think before you're speaking.
That's absolutely true. That pause, especially if you ask a tough question, you really need to give the other person the opportunity to think about it before they respond. And then in the same way as you want to give both of you a chance to think, you don't want to jump in there and start speaking too soon, and you also don't want to monopolize the conversation, so that you give the other person an opportunity to give their point of view. You want to also pay attention to your tone and body language, taking care that at no time do you appear or sound judgmental or confrontational, or that you're losing interest in the conversation. You want to follow up the conversation in future discussions as appropriate to make sure the staff person feels they were heard, their ideas were respected, even if they're not necessarily accepted. Although, if they're not accepted, you really owe it to the person to get back to them and tell them why you decided to move in a different direction.
That is so important. And it's not just explaining it, but again, asking their reaction, how they feel about it. Do they have any other ideas about how to proceed? Just keeping them engaged in that conversation is so important to building and maintaining staff morale. You really have. You can't ever just let it, we're doing this because I said we're doing this. It's always got to be, and this comes back to one of our previous episodes where we talk about, coaching the team and making, keeping a team spirit and keeping everybody on the team. This is what, you really are a coach in that sense. In this episode, we've talked about coaching through questioning. And the goal here is to develop your staff by the use of questions that encourage them to think creatively while being open to the ideas and opinions of others. The questioning should show interest and empathy and encourage feedback and input and foster trust and collaboration. These interactions with staff afford you the opportunity to make suggestions that will challenge their thinking and encourage alternative ways for them to approach issues. It takes time, but the time will be well spent and your staff will recognize and appreciate your efforts. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.